Our Department of Investigation put out a report looking back on everything that happened in May and June, trying to help us all understand what went on and what we need to learn from it, what we have to do better. And I want to say from the beginning, I read this report and I agree with it. I agree with its analysis and I agree with its recommendations because it makes very clear we've got to do something different and we've got to do something better. I want to be really clear, those days in May and June were not like anything I think that's happened before in the city's history. They certainly, for me, were like nothing I ever experienced before. Incredibly challenging. And we saw problems that we had not seen before in ways that we'd never experienced. And that makes it hard for everyone. But the point still is we have to do better. I have to do better. Our police department has to do better. We have to hear people's voices and respect the will of the people while also keeping people safe at all times. That's not easy. We saw some things happen that made it a lot harder. We saw some violence that was confounding to everyone, things we hadn't seen before. We saw looting, something we hadn't seen in decades. I don't want anyone for a moment to miss that I personally found those things incredibly distressing and upsetting and tried to make decisions to stop the violence, to stop the looting, to bring this city back to a place of peace where we could deal with the real issues that were being raised by thousands and thousands of peaceful protesters. In the weeks after the murder of George Floyd, I spent a lot of time with Black Lives Matter activists. I spent a lot of time with members of the Cure Violence movement and the crisis management system. I spent a lot of time with folks in neighborhoods that had borne the brunt of COVID, that were feeling the desperate need for change. And what we all said to each other is Black Lives Matter is not just words, it must take immediate form, it must be real, it must be something we put into action. This is what we've got to do in this city. I heard in their voices a belief that we do not have to live somehow held back by this history that grips this nation, this city still. We know there is racism sewn into the fabric of New York City, and we have to tear it out. We know it, and we can do it. The folks fighting in every neighborhood give me hope. The folks who are stopping violence, who are helping young people, the folks who are demanding accountability from their city, from their police. You're making a huge difference. I feel it. And I know we can get something done that has never been possible before. George Floyd didn't die in vain. I know it. I feel it. And I feel it because I've been there in the streets of the city with people who will not let him die in vain. The Department of Investigation report really lays out the ways that we have to have a different approach, a different strategy, a different way of communicating right there on the spot when there's a protest, but also to the people of the city as a whole. And I appreciate the report says very clearly, look, some individual police officers did something wrong and that's unacceptable and there has to be discipline. Vast majority of officers did their job and respected people's rights. But then there were things that happened that were not about whether someone made an individual mistake. There were choices made, strategic choices that weren't good choices, it turns out, that ended up causing problems. And we have to come to grips with that. We have to train our police force differently. We have to create a new reality where we really focus on reaching the people we serve, communicating with everyday New Yorkers, including people who have problems with the police, and listening to them. This is the whole idea we started out with 7 years ago with neighborhood policing. That idea needed to pervade the approach to the protests. It didn't. We got overwhelmed by the challenges. That does not take away the fact that we had to stay clear and true to our principles. Neighborhood policing is about listening to people, connecting with people, hearing them, reminding them that the police are of and by and for them. We did not do that well enough, and we have to do better. So it's a season of reflection right now. That's what the holidays are. I'm reflecting on what happened in May and June, and I look back with remorse. I wish I had done better. I want everyone to understand that. And I'm sorry I didn't do better, and I've learned a lot of valuable lessons, and I want our police department to do better. And I'm going to insist upon that. I don't want to ever see some of these situations happen again, and they don't have to happen again in New York City, because we have an approach that we know works when police and community engage each other respectfully and when there's real dialogue, and that's what we have to get back to, and that's what's going to keep us safe. For years, it was proven it kept us safe. We got to go back to it. We got to deepen it. That's the way forward. So I want to thank everyone at the Department of Investigation. I think they did a really thorough job, a really thoughtful job. Some things I agree with more than other things, but that's not the point. It is a really honest work. There's a lot of integrity in it. And I know this gives us a roadmap for what we have to do better in the future. I've spoken to Commissioner Shea, and he agrees. We accept the recommendations of the Department of Investigation. We're going to implement them right away. And in the season of reflection, we're going to reflect on what we did right and wrong and do better. We're going to go into a new year with a new resolve to do better. It's also a season of redemption. And I believe in the year 2021, New Yorkers are going to heal. We're going to find each other and hear each other. We're going to move past the coronavirus, move past the tensions that came out of this horrible perfect storm of a year we lived through. I think there's something better ahead. And I can tell you I'm going to use every ounce of my energy in the year 2021 to get us there. And I have faith. I have faith in New Yorkers will get there together. Thank you.